Okay, picture this. It is 1453 Constantinople, the most fortified city on planet Earth. We're talking walls that had stood for 1,000 years without being breached. 1,000 years, the Roman Empire fell, and these walls were still standing. The Mongols showed up, and these walls said, nah. The Crusades happened for centuries. And these walls didn't even flinch. So everyone in Europe was like, yeah, that place literally impossible to conquer. Then the Ottomans rolled up. What did they bring? The world's biggest cannon, and I mean big. This thing needed 60 oxen just to drag it around. The cannonballs weighed 1,300 pounds, one shot. The wall cracks 2 shots. The wall starts crumbling 3 shots. Game over. Constantinople fell. 1,000-year empire gone in 53 days. Welcome to the Ottoman Empire, where they didn't just fight wars. They rewrote the rules of warfare. This is a story about innovation, discipline, and absolute domination that lasted 600 years. Buckle up. This is going to be epic to understand why the Ottomans were so insanely good at war. We got to rewind to the origin story. Year 1299, Osman I, a Turkish tribal leader, establishes a tiny principality in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. What did they have? A few thousand warriors, a small patch of land, no navy, no cannons. Nothing special. And here's the thing, they were surrounded by giants. The Byzantine Empire, what was left of Rome. The Seljuk Empire, various European kingdoms. Everyone looked at them and thought, these guys, they'll be gone in 10 years. Fast forward 300 years. The Ottoman Empire controlled the entire Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe, the Balkans. Their capital, Constantinople, renamed Istanbul, became the richest city in the world. Their military unstoppable. So the question is, how did they pull this off? The answer wasn't luck. It wasn't a fluke. It was a systematized military machine that was centuries ahead of everyone else. Let me break it down for you. Why the Ottoman military was unbeatable. Weapon 1, the Janissaries. The ultimate elite force. All right, this is where the Ottomans got absolutely wild. Most countries, how do they build armies? Nobles bring their peasants to fight. Volunteers, ragtag militias thrown together. The Ottomans said, nope, we want professionals. So they created the Janissaries, the world's first standing professional army. But here is the dark twist. The recruitment system, Devshirme. The Ottomans had this system called Devshirme, literally blood tax. Here is how it worked. 1. Ottoman officials go to conquered Christian territories, Balkans, Greece. Armenia 2, they select the smartest, strongest boys, ages 8-18-3. These boys get taken to Istanbul 4. They convert to Islam 5. They undergo 10 years of brutal military training, combat tactics, discipline 6. They become Janissaries. The Sultan's elite guard sounds brutal. It was. Taking kids from their families, changing their religion, turning them into warriors. But from a pure military standpoint, this created the most lethal fighting force in the world. Why the Janissaries were so deadly, think about it. These guys trained from childhood. By age 20, they were professional killers. They had no family ties, no tribal loyalties. They were loyal to the Sultan only. They got the best armor, the best weapons. They mastered muskets and cannons, while Europe was still using bows and arrows. And most importantly, disciplined European armies, feudal militias, peasants forced to fight who didn't want to be there and would run at the first sound of gunfire. Janissaries. They wanted to fight. This was their career, their identity. Janissaries on the battlefield. Imagine facing an army where every single soldier has trained for 10 years, is equipped with firearms when you are still holding a sword, moves in perfect formation, and never retreats. That is the Janissaries. They weren't just soldiers, they were war machines. Weapon 2, the artillery revolution. Bigger boom. Now let's talk about those cannons. The Ottomans didn't invent gunpowder. That was China. But they perfected the cannon. Remember that giant cannon I mentioned at the start? It was called the Basilica cannon, built by a Hungarian engineer named Urban for Sultan Mehmed II. The specs on this thing: length 27 feet, weight 40,000 pounds, cannonball weight 1,300 pounds, range 1 mile. This thing was so massive, it needed 60 oxen to drag, 200 men to operate, and took 3 hours to reload. But when it fired, walls crumbled. The walls of Constantinople, unbreached for 1,000 years, were destroyed in weeks. And this wasn't the Ottomans' only cannon. They had hundreds. While European castles still relied on thick walls, the Ottomans were blowing them up. While European armies were still doing night charges, the Ottomans were bombarding them with artillery. This wasn't a fair fight. This was technological domination. Weapon 3, cavalry. Speed and terror, but the Ottomans didn't just rely on firepower. They also had cavalry, two types, Saipahi, heavy cavalry. These were the Ottoman version of knights, heavy armor, lances, swords, bows. Their job was to charge enemy lines, create chaos, and let the Janissaries finish the job. Akinci light cavalry. These were the terror cavalry. Their job wasn't to fight, it was to create panic. They'd arrive days before the main army, burn villages, raid supplies, spread fear. By the time the Ottoman main force showed up, the enemy was already demoralized. And Ottoman cavalry was fast. They could deploy quickly, flank enemies, and retreat before anyone could react. European armies were slow and clunky. Ottoman armies were fast and lethal. Weapon 4, logistics, the boring part, but super important. Okay, this is the part most people skip. But this is where the Ottomans really shine. Logistics. Sounds boring, right? But this was their secret weapon. The Ottomans had the best military logistics system in history. They built roads connecting the empire, caravanserais, rest stops for fast communication, warehouses to store supplies, hospitals to treat wounded soldiers. They had dedicated engineers who built bridges, dug trenches, constructed siege towers, and repaired weapons. While European armies collapsed from starvation and disease, Ottoman armies were well supplied and healthy. This wasn't just fighting, this was industrialized warfare. Weapon 5, navy controlling the seas. Finally, the Ottomans didn't just dominate land, they dominated the seas. Their navy used galleys, fast warships powered by oarsmen. These ships could move without wind, turn quickly, and were armed with cannons. And the Ottomans even recruited pirates as admirals. The most famous, Barbarossa Harridan, a Greek pirate who became the Ottoman Grand Admiral. He terrorized the Mediterranean for decades. By the 16th century, the Ottomans controlled the Mediterranean, the Red Sea, and the Black Sea. They weren't just a naval power, they were a maritime empire. All right, we've covered the weapons. Now let's talk tactics, because having the best gear is one thing. Knowing how to use it is another. Tactic 1, siege warfare. The art of patience. The Ottomans were masters of siege warfare. Their standard playbook: own, reconnaissance, send spies to study city defenses. 2, encirclement. Cut off all supply lines. 3, bombardment, pound the walls with cannons for weeks. 4, mining, dig tunnels under the walls and blow them up. 5, assault. When the walls fall, Janissaries charge in, but here is the clever part: psychological warfare. The Ottomans didn't just attack walls, they attacked morale. They'd display their massive army outside the walls, bombard day and night, so no one could sleep, and offer surrender terms. Surrender equals live, resist equals die. Most cities surrendered before the fighting even started. Tactic 2, open battle, discipline over courage in open field battles. Ottoman tactics were simple but deadly. Their formation: center. Janissaries in tight formation with muskets and cannons flanks. Saipahi cavalry ready to charge front. Akinci light cavalry harassing the enemy. The battle flow. Akinci harassed the enemy and bait them into charging. Enemy charges toward the Janissary line. Janissaries unleash musket volleys and destroy them. Saipahi charge from the flanks and encircle survivors. Game over. The key was discipline. Ottoman soldiers never broke formation. European armies would panic and collapse. Ottoman armies held the line until the end. This discipline made them unbeatable. Tactic 3, adaptability, learning from mistakes, but the Ottomans' biggest advantage: they adapted. When Europe developed better muskets, the Ottomans copied them. When Europe improved castle designs, the Ottomans improved their cannons. When Europe formed coalition, the Ottomans divided them. They weren't stubborn, they were pragmatic. All right, enough theory, let me show you some real-world examples. Battle 1, Fall of Constantinople, 1453. We already mentioned this, but let me give you the full story. Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire, had walls that had never been breached in 1,000 years. Sultan Mehmed II, only 21 years old at the time, brought 80,000 soldiers. They brought giant cannons. They even built a wooden road to drag ships overland into the Golden Horn, bypassing Byzantine naval defenses. 53 days later, the walls fell. The Byzantine Empire ended. The Ottomans became the new Rome. Battle 2, Battle of Mochis, 1526, the Kingdom of Hungary. A European power tried to stop Ottoman expansion. The fight, Hungary's 25,000 soldiers versus Ottoman's 50,000 soldiers plus cannon. The result, 2 hours. The Hungarian army was annihilated, the king drowned in a swamp while fleeing. Hungary became an Ottoman vassal state. Battle 3. Battle of Preveza, 1538, a European coalition. Spain. Venice. Papal states formed the Holy League to fight the Ottoman navy. Holy League, 300 ships. Ottomans commanded by Barbarossa, 122 ships. Barbarossa destroyed the coalition fleet. The Ottomans controlled the Mediterranean for 30 years. But here is the twist. By the 17th century, the Ottomans started falling behind. Why? Because Europe caught up. They adopted muskets, cannons, and disciplined training, and the Ottomans, they stopped innovating. Sultans became weak. Janissaries became corrupt. The empire overextended. Too big to manage effectively. The turning point was the Siege of Vienna 1683. The Ottomans tried to conquer Vienna, they failed. This marked the end of Ottoman expansion. From then on, it was slow decline. World War I, 1914-1918. The Ottomans sided with Germany, they lost. 1922, the Ottoman Empire officially dissolved. 600 years of rule ended. So why were the Ottomans so dominant in battle? 3 reasons: innovation, they adopted new tech faster than anyone else. Discipline, the Janissaries were one of the most trained armies in history. Adaptability, they learned from mistakes and constantly improved. The Ottoman Empire wasn't just another empire. They were a military revolution. They proved that tech beats tradition, discipline beats courage, and adaptability beats stubbornness. They ruled for 600 years longer than most modern countries have existed. They conquered 3 continents. They redefined warfare itself. That is the Ottoman Empire. Not just powerful, legendary. And that is the story of Ottoman military dominance, innovation, discipline, domination. History reminds us, adapt or die. If you want more insane history stories like this, hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more where this came from.